appointed. Should I start over? Just saw the recording. So I was born in 19. I'll keep going. So we've got 3 appointed positions. One, Keith Parsons, is the code enforcement guy. He's been in place for a while. The other 2 I can't say yet because I haven't gotten the green light from the mayor. One of the things that I noticed early on was I really care about sustainability. So I won't say what it is yet, but I'm elevating Mike to a role so that's much more prominent, just visibly in the org chart. I mean, Mike, it's not like it changed the way he behaved because Mike's out there doing what he's doing, but Mike's going to play a special role in helping the agency. And I'd say the 3 areas where I want to focus, and there's an interrelationship between all of them. I'd say it has to do with enhancing our communication internally and externally. Internally amongst divisions, and then externally with the market, and that's you, and with our sister agencies. So many of our problems crop up because people aren't dotting I's and crossing T's and just talking and figuring stuff out. So that's not a tech solution, that's a human solution. We're going to, get people to talk. People just follow through, think more critically, think laterally, connect the dots. Collaboration, it's related to communication, but it's the desire to actually reach out, problem solve. We've done a lot of things in the last 4 months. I've had 4 months on the job with various other agencies that are actually lightening workload internally because we just didn't problem solve for those things earlier. So collaboration, but collaboration also includes like what we're doing right now. For me, we're reached out to DCBIA, to the African American Real Estate Professionals of DC, AOBA, and we're having ongoing dialogue to help us figure out what the hell's driving you crazy, what do we need to think about, what do we need to tweak and modify, and how do we adjust. Now, sometimes it's just telling you guys, here's why we do it this way and making it clear, but sometimes it's looking internally and modifying. So there's communication, collaboration, and then there's this other component, customer service, which is having an attitude that, yes, we're a regulatory agency. We have to hold people accountable for building safe properties that are in accordance with the code, that are in accordance with the approved permit drawings and all those other things. So we're the sort of traffic cops of the building world, but I want us to be more park ranger than state trooper. And by that, I mean, we have to help people solve stuff. It's not binary yes or no. If it's how do we help navigate? Now, sometimes the answer from us is no, but then it has to include here's why, or here's an avenue for helping to solve that. So that customer service, it involves talking to people. It involves having a degree of empathy and trying to help figure stuff out. Now, I'll say this. I've had one individual thus far say, "Oh, so you're trying to be nicer." And I said, "Well, no, that's one way to say it, I suppose. But I'll tell you something. I was at a site yesterday. Guy is working without a permit. It's illegal construction. He has torn down the stop work order signs multiple times. So I went to the site. I signed the stop work order. I stuck it to the door. I took a picture. I went by today. He's ripped it off again. And I can assure you that we're not going to be nice. We're ramping this up all the way to, I'm already talking to MPD, and this could tilt into a criminal offense. So we have to follow through on both fronts, but we have to lead with customer service. And let me just say this, you guys, you're taking a risk. You're out there every day busting your tail, trying to make a living. I happen to know, because I've run a business, as has Mike, how hard it is to make $1. I don't think you're printing money. I think you're working your asses off. So our part of our job is to not be an obstacle to that, is to kind of, be mindful that our success involves helping you guys be successful in what you do. So that's my pitch, as it were. And I don't really have an awful lot more to say right now. I guess I'd rather just ask if you guys have questions. I want to ask Mike if he wants to add anything to what I just said.
Yeah. Anyway, this is one of the groups I love to talk with, because if they won't pull any punches, and I like the dunk tank, as you all know. So, you'll be lobbing your balls at us. Brian's a big boy. He can handle it too. And
I want you to do it. I swear to God. I mean, look, you don't have to, like, pour salt in it and kick me in the, whatever's, but you can just, you communicate with us. And that sometimes you need to tell us stuff that you may think we don't want to hear. So I'm with you. Yeah.
And then the second thing is, I had a good meeting with Mary Fitch from AIA yesterday, and she's going to find 3 architects to join a working group that we all talked about to develop a standard for what our cover pages need to look like.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And so we're going to have, I think we had at least David Merrick volunteering for that work. Now that he put himself out to pasture, he still works 40 hours a week, though. He just doesn't have to write the checks for payroll anymore.
No, I get one though.
Good. So anyway,
Can I ask a question while you're still talking? Is Mike still going to be our man, or now that he's getting a promotion?
Yeah, this is the.
Let me add to that answer. I'm not negating his answer, but this organization needs to grow people. And so we're gonna recruit internally for folks. I'm doing some things that move people around, so I can't promise you that you won't see new faces, but I will promise you this: we're going to work our tails off to make sure that the messaging and the experience is consistent, is predictable, and it doesn't fluctuate like wildly because you got a new person that you're now talking to. So that's going to be a focus. I trust Mike a lot, and I know, like, let me just say something. Our senior management team is going to be the most philosophically aligned group of leaders I've ever worked with. And we're about to unveil it. That's saying an awful lot. But we've got people that we understand the dance steps, like, we're philosophically aligned. So yeah, Mike's going to be your guy. You'll always have access to Mike, but you might meet some new people too.
Yeah, you definitely will be meeting some new people. And if I can add on to that, David, I treat my current job, I treat any job that's customer service like I did for 30 years in retail. I walk the floor. I don't hang out in my office. I'm out somewhere. I'd rather be talking to somebody than on Zoom, or I'd rather not send an email when I can walk up a floor and grab somebody and talk with them. But I also have a couple of people that I really want to mentor who can replace me. And I don't know, you guys might recognize Mercedelli Mesa. She's one of the people we need to elevate at DOB. She's ready for it. And she's got a great story too. DC lifelong resident, went to grade school through high school, went to UDC, got her architecture degree, worked in private sector a bit, and then came to public service, where she's a standout. I mean, she is absolutely a standout. And life changed for her. She cared for her mother as she was going through the dying process, for lack of a better term, for 7 years. She put her life on hold. And when she was done with that, about a month later, I asked her, I said, Mercy, you're ready to do something else? Are you ready to be part of it? And she's like, yeah, I need to level up here and contribute better to DC. So those are the kind of people we want to elevate, and we have those kind of people.
Well, congratulations on the promotion. And we really are all about elevating people. And aside from government affairs, one of PRO's primary missions is education and providing the tools that our member companies need to advance their own people and move them along. So it's very important, and it's good to see new people.
Yeah. So we're going to be there, but I like, I just call it, I like walking the floor,
Yeah.
touching merchandise.
And I just want to say too, I mean, I feel like philosophically, I want to change this place. I want to make things happen, but I don't want them to be because I'm here. I want stuff to make so much sense ultimately that some person that replaces me in a couple of years isn't going to want to mess with it. And that's the tough part about government is that someone else can walk in and just shake it all up, and you got to start rebuilding it. But if we're building a team that is uniformly aligned, and as much as you can make that happen internally, then that has a legacy effect, and that's kind of what we want to do, if you follow me.
Okay.
I think that's great. And thank you so much for all of that information. I'm sure there's questions. I know that there's people on this call that have sent questions to me and Mike. Is there anybody like Doug or Ellen or anybody that would like to start off with a question for Director Hanlon?
I'd just like to say that I work for Case Design Remodeling. There are two other designers on this call from our company. We have enjoyed working with Michael Brown the last few years. We actually enjoyed working with Ernest Schrappa too. He brought in a lot of good energy and cared a lot about the customer experience as much as he could. And things got stable and the reviews got stable for the most part. There were challenges with third-party reviewers and things, but I really felt like we had some idea that if we prepared our drawings one way for one project and then repeated that, we would get similar results on our permit reviews. That's really helpful for our company and our clients. Obviously, the sister agencies are different. We deal with DDOT with, not always liking that process, but a lot of the other agencies we get along with pretty well. So I just want to say thank you to Michael Brown for making the residential center easy to work with, and the staff there is really great. And anything you could do to keep that going would be appreciated.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I do feel like I acquired some great stuff. So we're gonna try to improve things that need tweaking and not screw things up that are already working well. So
thank you for the kind words. And I'd like to follow on that about the contractors, because that is one of the things that we need to do better oversight on. And so Mercy is one of the people I want to elevate, and Raju is one of the people I want to elevate, and you guys know their names. I'm going to pull them out of day-to-day plan review, and their full-time job is going to be to QA our contractors and then start developing what are our problems and fixing them, teaching them, because in many cases, it's our problem. We didn't tell them what we want, or we didn't educate them properly. And there's some we didn't fire. Right? We should fire some of these people because they just don't want to do it the right way.
right.
But those two, I think that it'll be great training for them to see a broader view of DOB and hear from people like you guys.
I've got a dunk tank question.
Bring it on, man.
And Ellen reminded me of it when she used third-party reviewers. I mean, the biggest problems that I've ever had have been with the third-party reviewers, and it almost seems like they were collecting a paycheck with the number of comments they found on the drawings, and they were, really not very responsive. So what's the future of third-party reviewers versus have it done all by Department of Building staff?
So thanks. That was an easy one this time, David, so I'll deal with it. there's two things that we had to fix immediately to make the contractors more responsive to you. One, we had to get them DOB, DC government email addresses, so we can track what the heck's going on, and you have a common way of finding them. Secondly, we're adding them to our customer relationship management system. Now we have absolute tracking. So for instance, when we finish transitioning them into our customer relationship management system, we're going to isolate them in one spot. So when we want to look at contractors and are they responsive to you, we can pull it up and look at every email that came in. So you may have noticed on our comment sheets now, we tell our plan reviewers here, and we've been about 65–70% effective so far. They put on, if you have any questions, email dob@dc.gov. In the subject line, put my name if I'm the plan reviewer and the permit number. Well, now I have absolute tracking for all my folks every time they get an email, because it's going to go into, it goes into the customer relationship management system. So I've got a lot of people, I have to break the habit of just emailing directly to the person because they think they'll be faster. No, fastest, quickest way is getting through our customer relationship management system. We're going to do the same thing with our third-party contractors. That allows me to find out who's not responsive to customers.
Okay.
All right, does anybody else have any questions? I've got certainly some topics that we could hit. But I don't want to be the only driving force here. And so anyone else want to chime in?
I'll add a few. My name is Quasi Hemming with Case Design. I'm here with Ellen and Elizabeth. And this is just to follow up on what Ellen also said about communication. I think in the last couple of years, we've enjoyed communication and in a way collaboration, because sometimes it almost feels as if DOB's goal, as far as reviewers, is to prevent you from getting the permit. So I like what Brian mentioned, and all my questions, in a way, you answered them already, because the process here is for them to assist us, not to do our work for us, but at least to facilitate, the process of us being able to get permits and get these jobs, produced. And the lack in there is not being able to communicate with anyone when it comes to reviewers. You could send 10 emails. And again, some of the things we've enjoyed with Michael is that we would send an email and you would respond.
Well, I'll tell you what, one of the things that I like when I see them email traffic, it makes my head explode when I see someone say, I've emailed so-and-so like 3 or 4 times and I haven't heard in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And I will say this, I feel like, most of the people here, most of the time, are doing really good work. That the things that get a lot of the noise, most of the noise, are actually, it's more like 5, 10, maybe 12% of our stuff. But it creates a lot of noise and it creates a narrative. Now, having said that, this is my ask of you guys, and is I don't know where yet, but I believe that in our plan review and permitting process, we have to think differently about how we receive projects, triage them, and then staff them, and I think we can squeeze weeks out of the process. I think we can. I don't know where yet. And I haven't heard anybody internally disagree with me yet. And I do welcome disagreement if I'm wrong. I want someone to say, no, this is why it takes this long. If that's the case, that's the case. But I think we can squeeze time out of it. And that time equals money, equals incentive to want to even work here, to come to the district. So I think we need to have some follow-up with, folks like you, like the team that Mike is talking about setting up through DAC. Got to have a same work committee at your level. We're going to do the same thing at the large commercial level, but at the sort of the residential remodeling, and I'm assuming that's most of your work. Is that correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Being not yet, so it's residential scale. So you have a different set of challenges. And I think we're just going to need your input on that. And it's okay, like you said, you want to dunk tank us on something, do it.
If I can follow on to that, Nicole and I have been putting together a change in terms of how we triage plan review in residential. So currently we have what we call the next day plan review system, and then we have this 25, 30-day SLA. So we're going to be introducing in October a 5-day SLA. And when I look at it, right, we know the easy stuff. It's a roof, it's 3 or 4 new windows, doing a bathroom. We get those out very rapidly. 1 day in PRC, 1 day with us, and if everything's cool, 3rd day, the issuance of the permit. And then everything else gets thrown in that 25, 30-day queue, and it's in that long list. What we want to take is a 5-day one. So from my point of view, we can review within a 5 business days a complete interior remodel, because it's relatively easy plan review work, right? Even if you're doing taking down a structural wall and putting a new LVL in, that's easy work for us to review. So we need to get a whole bunch of our jobs out of the 25, 30-day queue and drop them into that 5-day queue.
Where is the dividing line? What's the threshold for being a simple or a 5-day project? An addition, a second story?
Yeah, an addition is always going to be 25 days. If you're trading, we just had because I'm going through projects and trying to, how do I define this, right? That's what we have to be able to give you guys information on. So I looked at a project today where we thought it was a simple interior remodel. They were, going to open concept on the main floor. I mean, we've done that review so many times. It's like with your eyes closed, or should be. But when we dug in, oh, guess what? They also decided to open concept the basement. We got a little problem here. Oh, they also didn't tell us that we looked at the plan that they were dropping the floor by 2 feet. So those would be definitely into the 25, 30-day SLA. But the first thing that the way they explained it, they were just going to do open concept 5 days. I think what I see often is, unless there's a lot of structural work, anything that's 12, 15 pages without extensive structural load-bearing work, those should all be 5 days. I mean, you add a bathroom to the first floor. I mean, how many of your jobs are open concept on the main floor, putting in a powder room on the main floor, and creating a true master bedroom?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, those jobs every day.
Yeah. With the group of contractors that are in attendance here, we do a lot of standard projects like bathrooms and kitchens and open things, but we're also the ones that are responsible for the complicated ones that are, structurally challenging and are additions and things like that. These are all, sizable contractors in the room here. And,
Yeah. So,
knowing what to put on the plan so that you understand the job. And I forget which plan review or in what county it was. It said the description is so important that you write. And, maybe we need to do some training on how to write a good description so that you can understand right away what the project is.
For the cover page. Yeah, that's absolutely one of the things we have to do on the cover page, because that cover page needs to be matching the application. And one of the things we will be cracking down on are the people who say one thing on the application and then load everything into the plans thinking they can sneak it through and we'll get them stamped. So we can fix that. You're absolutely right. But the other piece of it that I think that will impact you folks who do these bigger projects, if we start pulling out all of these 5-day reviews, think about what was formerly the 25-day plan review SLA that used to have 200 always in queue. We pull them down to 5. We have a dedicated team that does the 5s. That 25-day one suddenly becomes 50 projects. So my belief is that by managing it right,
Yeah,
everybody will get out faster. And,
I agree. Yeah.
so I think that will.
The reason it takes 25 days is all the other sister agencies that get involved in.
Yes, but I will, we had a comment about DDOT. I mean, we've been working with DDOT since the day I showed up and I found out that they were a problem. They've gone from 60-day plan review. They're down into the 30-day range. So they've improved that, and they can continue to improve. Because what I found out lately talking to the DDOT people, because I had them run a report, they NA more than 50% of the projects that we assign to them. So we have to get better on slicing out those projects so they never go to them. So they don't have to open it.
NA is not applicable.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's like, why did we just wasted everybody's time.
Yeah.
So we have to get smarter on that.
Yeah, that's right.
And then they need to agree to do some of the things we need.
Yeah.
I know I've complained before when I see a review that wasn't necessary, and the last one was Montgomery County and they took it off. So,
yeah.
I have a quick question. How many of you all are doing work that requires deep excavation and underpinning?
We do it.
Got it. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna give you, I don't think we've announced this formally. It's but I'll just give you a heads up that it's coming, because we've had some very bad actor contractors that are doing it in an irresponsible way and have caused severe damage to adjacent property, which we can't have anymore. So we're communicating with the insurance industry, and for certain permit types are going to be requiring adjacent and adjoining property insurance. It shouldn't be that expensive. It should be a fraction of the cost of the improvement, but it's going to, I think, go a long way to protect neighbors, because it's, I'm going to, well, it's got rescheduled, but I was going to hit one Friday and I was there at another site last week, and it's really, it's really tragic with this person's house, what's happened to it, because they got some bonehead contractor that's just digging in a way that's not responsible. So
and I guess the insurance company
nodding, so I didn't see any like anger.
No, it's a great idea. Can we kind of top that off and say, like, and ask what are the plans for tackling illegal construction in the District of Columbia, and in a real way, not in this kind of cursory, hey, let's have some dust ups and let's get the city council chomping at the bit because we know what they want to do.
Well,
like, what are the real ways we're going to tackle this?
I mean, first of all, the honest first answer is I don't know yet. I'm thinking about it, and we as a team are thinking through it. But what I don't want to do is, I feel like there's this sort of like rigid approach to we get a call, we go out to inspect, we don't see anything. This happens all the time, and so then we report, didn't see anything. And it'll happen 2 or 3 times. I think we need to figure out how to be smarter about it. And I'll just float this idea. One of the things that happens is, and it's not just this egregious guy I mentioned earlier, is that we do have people that continue to work past, they get a stop work order for illegal construction, and they don't care. They just show up and they keep going. And it's hard for us to stay on top of it because we can't be everywhere all at once. So I'm like, we got to figure out, like, I don't know, site cameras, something. We need to figure something out so that we've got more eyes and ears. I would love your ideas on that, Keith, and team. I would love your ideas on how we can get better at holding people accountable.
What kind of tie into the license is there? Because that's in the other department now.
A great question. I mean, that we probably need to tighten that up a bit. I'll tell you, what I did today was this guy, he's applying for an ABCA license. I called Fred over at ABCA and I said, here's the address, shut him down. And we're going to so we have to actually hit that across. So if it's a business license, we need to connect with the LCP and do a good job of that.
How many permits are issued?
We're just trying to do work that complies with the rules. We're the ones who are getting permits. We're not out there doing any work without permits. So
I'm sure the group assembled.
Yeah,
You're good actors.
right.
Hey, sorry. I think David was also trying to jump in with another follow-on question. David, did you have?
It slipped away already. That's why I've retired. I'm losing my mind.
Let's see if I think
David, you're kind of asking how many.
Well, we were talking about licensing and
Yeah.
holding people accountable. Does that ring a bell?
When you issue a permit, a homeowner can apply for a permit directly. How many of those are really legitimate homeowner jobs that are taking place? Isn't that a loophole that people are using to, if all the permits for major jobs were issued to licensed contractors, you probably would have less of a problem.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good point. Mike knows more about this than I do right now.
David, I'm with you. I mean, this whole thing with illegal construction, when I came from New York, I mean, I was shocked in a number of ways. Number one, in New York, if you get caught doing illegal construction, the tow truck from the police department shows up and hauls off your truck and your tools. So that's a pretty heavy fine, and it takes you probably 2 weeks to get it back. But they also, some of the jurisdictions were just really good about then chasing your license. If somebody hauled it off, you were going to lose your license for 30 or 60 days, depending on which time. But what happened, it became a vehicle where the good actors could, because you lose jobs to the bad actors, right? So you're sitting there and you drive past, nothing drove me more crazy than driving past the house where we pitched a deal and somebody else got it. But when I see who it is, I know they're not licensed. That started when they started taking away the vehicles. You started having the good actors dropping the dime, saying, hey, this is an illegal construction, because we all also know that a lot of those folks who are doing illegal work are ripping off the homeowner. They are causing damage for the homeowner.
They're hurting your industry.
Yeah. And we all get the bad name. Like, how many times have you been at a party where nobody knew you before and you told them, oh, I'm in the remodeling business? Holy cow, they're headed to the door to get away from you. Yeah. Right? Because sometimes the bad actors do bad work for us.
Yeah. Well, let us be clear. We are not in favor of bad actors.
I know.
Get the tow truck, tow them away, take their tools, put them in jail. Like when that guy rips the stop work order off the door, get the policeman.
Yeah.
Go out there. I mean,
that's the next step. I mean, we're putting up fencing right now around, so he'll probably pull it away, but I'm doing it on purpose. I know he's going to mess with it. I'm just putting it up, and I've already talked to MPD, and that's the next step. We'll get out there, and it'll be fun.
I know in Maryland they prosecute a couple of contractors a year, all the way through.
Yeah.
Some of them in jail.
Yeah.
So,
well, in this case, it's actually the owner. He is the property.
That was my question about, they're kind of skirting the law. They're pulling a permit, but they're not a licensed contractor. They're a developer who just bought the piece of property. And
that's what's happening in this case. Yeah.
Yeah. So
He's got his subs. He's just getting people to do this, that, and the other thing. Yeah.
We're not real fans of the flipping industry either.
Yeah. How do you feel about those pop-ups?
Please get rid of 206.1 as fast as you can.
Which
And
one?
if you, that's a zoning code that says we can't take off front porches and cornices and small mansards.
So that it prevents you from taking that stuff off.
You have to then do a flat back right behind everything that pre-existed. So you can't even incorporate it into the neighborhood. Like you can still do the pop-up, but you can't take off the old cornice and the old mansard. You have to do these flat or something behind it, and they just look ridiculous.
That's pretty fascinating. I'd like to follow up with you on that because
historic for a facade review or something, but let's please get rid of 206.1. I'll follow up with you on anything, but let's get it back to permits, because the questions, let me just throw 3 questions out, or 3 issues, because I have solicited, Brian and Mike already knows this, I've solicited a few of the people in this group plus about maybe 10 others, and we've got kind of a running list. So kind of broad strokes, is there any, I'll just throw it out there. Is there any possibility of separating residential from commercial? Is there any possibility of doing sequential reviews instead of tandem reviews? And then if you are or are not going to do sequential reviews, could zoning be the first review? Such that, and I'll give you an example, if you get through zoning and then, or I'm sorry, you get through structural and then you don't get through zoning and you make modifications like in the past directly with Matt, you just go back and forth with Matt, he approves your zoning, you resubmit to zoning and you get approved, but now your mods from zoning don't actually match your structural plans, period.
So it's the zoning is going to impact basically the shape that you're designing too. And so you're saying, let's get the volume fixed and then we can back solve for all the other stuff. That's a really good suggestion.
I personally,
that makes a lot of sense.
Through Spectrum Design Build, I personally have 3 legitimate building permits in the last 3 to 4 years where the structure no longer matches the zoning. And because the zoning was the last thing to stop us, and no offense to anybody and everybody's great experience, without Michael, I might really be agitated. Michael is the greatest thing since sliced bread at DCRA, Department of Buildings. I've been there for 20 years, but I shouldn't have to know Michael to get a building permit. I mean, I should just be able to get a building permit. So,
I agree.
But anyway, I'm not going to go back into the system. Like I'm a very ethical guy, but I'm not going to resubmit my structural drawings if no one's asking me to. I'm just going to work it out in the field with the inspector.
Mike just said quietly, he's actually working on that right now. Good. With our zoning person. So that's a good thing.
And then the last thing is,
hope I didn't steal your thunder.
Can we somehow
with a comment on that,
David,
before you leave that topic,
hold on. We're throwing out 4 topics, then they're going to respond.
Okay.
You've had a lot of stage time, bud.
Here goes the dunk tank.
Questions, not all from me. I mean, Mike knows my laundry list. These are the questions that I solicited from the group over the last 6 to 8 months as directed. Okay. So the last one is, can we please figure out some interagency solves? So despite some people saying one agency is okay, our interagency experience is rock bottom. I mean, when we were being denied permits, and not me, the groups were being denied permits because we weren't compliant with OTR, because OTR did some fix and asked for back taxes for 5 years. And we couldn't get permits. I think we couldn't get permits at a DOEE. So like, can we please just fix interagency requirements
Yeah,
somehow?
that's very much on my to-do list.
Great.
But let me say that, Keith, I think maybe there's a small work committee, but I don't have all the fixes in my head, and I need, so part of it is sort of hearing. I told people when I first started, it's like, I don't want to hear your horror stories. I want your ideas. But sometimes in order to understand an idea, you have to get a little context. So I probably need you to case study some stuff, like, here's what happened. And so that I can go to OTR or DOEE, DDOT, and say, here's the stuff I'm trying to fix. So I know, I'm sorry to put homework back on you, but your kind of narrative to help understand, what happened, what were the points where it tripped up, is going to be enormously helpful for me.
Happy to do it.
Yeah, thanks.
Dave, what did you want to ask?
Back about the zoning comments, getting it done first, I think is, the only way to go, because it doesn't make any sense to
Makes a lot of sense.
And I've been using the zoning pre-construction conference feature that you all offer. And if we just connect the two parts a little bit, like listening to them in the beginning to give me the design constraints for my addition or whatever it is, has helped me design it correctly to meet the zoning. But if we could, like, maintain that contact with that person, and when we get to a concept, submit it kind of out before the permit even is submitted, and get zoning approval earlier on, so that when it comes into the permit processing, you just look on your list and it says this project's been approved.
Yeah, that's great. Let me ask you a question, in terms of sort of a work style question, but this building is being renovated, and I got to look at, however, I don't know, I'm in my 5th month now. I just started my 5th month. So it was like around month 2. I went to a design meeting for the building, and the design was already done. And so they were just showing me what was going to happen, but I couldn't help myself because I looked at some parts of it and I'm like, yeah, I'm not sure that works anymore. So the thing that I really changed was, and there were tweaks here and there, but the thing I really changed was the second floor. And if you know the current second floor layout, I'm sure you've all been there. You walk up, you go up the stairs, and then there's all these like tellers, like you're at the bank. And there's like 16 of them or 20 of them. And I don't know what they were like pre-COVID, but I don't know if we work that way anymore. So what I did was I talked to Nicole and the team. I said, all right, let's rethink how we design this. So what we're doing is I think we have 8 total teller stations, but then the rest of the space is different size workrooms. So you've got, like, you can roll some drawings out, you can have 3 or 4 people in the room kind of look at stuff together. We'll probably have a room that has teleconference capabilities, so we can do stuff like that. But that's an in-person solution that I personally would prefer if I were in your shoes, but I don't know what you prefer. Does that sound like we're doing the right thing?
I'm gonna say, generally speaking, most people with in-house design and above would prefer working online.
Okay.
Like electronic submittals, and only going in person for a PDRM or for
I think that's probably the case. Yeah. Yeah.
And David and Mike Brown, and just for Brian's benefit, this conversation about potentially having a zoning approval prior to submitting for your building permit is both easily accomplished by any design professional. Those drawings are usually ready way before the permit drawings. And that would get us even risk contractually off the risk of
Consider it
a
done.
contract, right? Because we all have contracts, and if we've got a $600,000-$700,000 renovation, and we're like with a zoning risk, then it's solved already, right?
Well,
And,
I don't see any reason why we can't do that. And
I
so
mean, that would be beautiful.
consider it done, and it will be done soon. We just have to talk internally and figure out how to rearrange the order, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah, hey Keith, or all of you, I've got a question, because this one drives me crazy as well. And part of it, what happens is zoning's the last people, they make a change, structural's already approved. So it comes back for zoning and they finally approve it. Then that zoning person's like, hey, wait a second, it's gotta go back to structural. I mean, that's just crazy how that works.
I've never had one actually sent back to structural.
Well, that's the second part of that problem. It doesn't always happen. But here's my question. It seems to me for the residential field, and the zoning people get a little irritated with me occasionally, it's pretty dang easy to figure out the zoning for a residential project and when you need to do it. If you're going up or back,
It's all volume.
I think we can create a sheet of, a document that you go in and say, oh, I'm going to do a pop up. The current size of the house is 25 by 14 or 18.
Yeah.
And it's 20 feet high. We're going 35 feet. The answer's there right then. So that should be a self-certification. Now, if you cheat on those numbers, hey, you're going to get banged. But do you think it could be that relatively simple for most projects on residential?
I think there's a lot of odd lots and shapes and
Yeah.
power lines and ADUs and decks that hang over and party walls and
required rear yards.
a lot
The question
That's a
is-
solid training.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I have to actually jump out for a sec because we've got a meeting that is starting right at the hour.
Okay.
So I apologize for ending a few minutes early, but this has been very fruitful for us. I appreciate it.
Thank
And,
you very much. And
I guess this is an ongoing dialogue, and I can't wait to kind of, hopefully meet you guys in person one day soon, but also just keep this going. So.
Oh, they're back to doing things in person. So in December, I think you always meet in person in December, right?
we would be more than happy to invite you guys to one of our meetings for sure.
Love to be there. And
Yeah.
I want to follow up on that. The zoning reg, Keith, that you mentioned is we don't write the zoning regs. We just interpret them. But look, I'm when I see those they look like buck teeth on some old nag horse. I mean, it's just a doofiest looking thing. When there's a pop-up, it just grates on me. So I would love to figure that. And I told Anita Cozart that. She's the Office of Planning Director. I'm like, what can we do about this? They're just so goofy looking.
Yeah. And Matt even thought it was goofy too, but his hands were tied. So, and I realize he's not gonna be there any longer. But I've had this conversation with Matt many times.
Well, let me assure you too, the new zoning administrator, you're gonna love this individual. So
Great.
you're gonna get the same kind of reasonableness and I'll say predictability, kind of how do we get to yes thinking. I mean, this is not a replica of Matt, but it's somebody that's, I think, pretty sharp. You're also going to get probably this person has extra gears. There's maybe a velocity improvement here. I think stuff's going to be more like that. So I don't want to say that. I don't want to denigrate, but I think I'm so grateful for Matt and his service, but we're going to have a real good person taking over. So
sounds great. Well, thank you so much. And we need to let you get to your meeting, and we'll probably want to close this meeting out as well.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you
you so much for your time today, Michael and Brian. We really appreciate it
yeah,
on behalf of Pro.
truly do. And for the folks that didn't speak, look forward to hearing from you down the road. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I hope you all have a great rest of your day.
You too, Sherry.
Hey,
Thank
Keith,
you.
Good job.
Yeah, see you guys later. Thank you very much.
Great job.